Hey guys, Chris from Provo Beast Audio Installation, and in today's video we're doing an amp and sub install in this 2018 Mitsubishi Outlander. Now in this install we're going to show you how to integrate this amp and sub to the factory audio sound system. Let's get started. So here at the bench, the parts that we're going with for our install, first and foremost, is the amp and sub that the customer wants us to put in. This is a Sony 1000 watt peak, about 500 watts RMS amplifier, and we're going to be pairing it with this Alpine Type S 12-inch subwoofer. Now, to accommodate that in the vehicle, we do need some sort of wiring kit. We have a New Concepts 4-gauge amplifier wiring kit. And because we are integrating into the factory audio sound system, we need some sort of line-out converter. Now, our Outlander does not have the upgraded factory amplified system, so just a basic pack line-out converter is all that's needed. You can certainly upgrade this to the higher pack models, whether it be the LP7-2 or their low generating higher quality one, kind of like the Audio Control LC2i for bass roll-off. It just really depends on how much you want to spend. We're just doing the basic line-out converter today. And finally, for our remote turn-on wire, we are just using this add a circuit. We're going to tap into the fuse box so we can trigger our amplifier to turn on when the vehicle boots up. So let's go ahead and start preparing our wiring. We're planning on installing our amplifier underneath the passenger front seat. It's a huge amp, so we're going to be doing our best to get that to fit. We'll show you the amp mount that we made to accommodate that in that location. And we got to start planning our wire run from underneath the hood at the battery area through an inline fuse, through the firewall to run it to that seat location. 14. Alright, so underneath the hood, our factory battery location happens to be under our intake here. So we'll actually have to get in there just a little bit so we have the space needed to make our connections. Now, the first thing we're going to do in our install here today is remove the negative off the battery. So with the negative off the battery here, what we've now planned on is running our power wire through an inline fuse as close to the battery as possible, but there is a factory grommet further back on the firewall that we'll use to pass our power wire on through. Now, just back behind the air box, there's going to be this little grommet there. That grommet itself is the main wiring grommet that passes most of your engine wiring through the firewall into the cabin of the vehicle. We can use this location, however, we have to be extremely careful of any of the factory wiring as we don't want to damage it as we try to pass our wire through there as well. If you are worried about passing wire through that same grommet, you're welcome to drill and run your own wiring and put your own grommet in. Alright, so what we've done here is through the very, very top of that grommet, we poked a wire hanger through, trying to stay completely clear of any of the factory wiring. And we ran that on through to the inside. We also taped ours, and we're going to lube this up really, really well with some soap and water so it just easily passes on through that rubber grommet there. We're going to go inside to show you exactly what that looks like and where it passes on through. Here on the inside, we pop down our under dash mat there. Just a couple of clips. That gets it up and out of the way there. Now looking up underneath the dash, you can see that factory wiring there. That's where it passes on through, right there, right over the factory wiring. We're not going through it. We're just going to go right above it through that grommet, and that's where that metal hanger right there passes on through. So we're going to go, like I said, lube that up on the other side, and then from the passenger compartment in here, we're going to go ahead and pull our wire on through. All right, so with that wire pulled on through, we split loomed it, ran it up and around. We came right up here. Then we created kind of an S-band fuse mount here where we can mount our fuse. It still has a lot of play in it. It's not obviously in the battery, it's just being sandwiched right here between the battery bracket and the battery itself. And then we have a lead that goes right over to our positive terminal post on our battery. Made a little cutout there so it can pass on through. Got everything split loomed. As always in our videos, we went ahead and put wire ferrules in and heat shrink up and over those connections here just so it's nice and insulated, just to help prevent with any corrosion. So really we're done besides hooking the negative up, but we're not going to do that because we're going to keep this off. We're going to actually pull the front seat out on the passenger side so we can start mocking up our amp and getting everything in place. Once we get everything wired up, we'll put the seat back in, reconnect the airbag harness, and then reinstall the negative back on the battery. Where it passes on through. Now you see that our blue wire, we actually taped that along in here. This is going to be a remote turn on wire. We're going to zip tie it along the factory loop up and over here. This comes on out. We're going to go to the fuse box here for our switch power so the amplifier can turn on when the vehicle is on. So we have that there. And there's a little passageway over the transmission tunnel that allows us to pull the wire to the passenger side. Now on this side you can see where the wire passes on over the transmission tunnel. Obviously we need to go ahead and tuck it up underneath the carpet. Well, we're going to tuck it under these panels, and here is the length where it'll terminate here at the amplifier. This is a good spot. We're going to mount our amp. It's really nice and flat. We're going to find some sort of factory ground or make one here on the seat support bracket, and that allows us to have a nice short ground for our amplifier that's going to go in this location. So let's start pulling off these panels here and prepping this area for our amplifier. Now with the kind of carpet up and out of the way, if we lift this, there is a factory grounding location, which is great. So we're going to remove that 10mm bolt. We're going to get a wire brush and clean up the paint. We'll add our ground to that factory ground and reinsert our bolt there, tightening everything down. There's also an unused threaded bolt right there as well. So if you just wanted to create your own, you can use one of these two. I would assume it's probably for the factory amplifier or sub or anything that went under the seat that this vehicle is not equipped with, so you could probably use one of those as well. All right, so we've prepared our ground here. We got our ring terminal on, some heat shrink, as well as our spade terminal, because these take spade terminals here. It's the older style amp terminals. Not my favorite, but it's what we got to work with. So we went ahead and put a 4-gauge spade terminal on there. Got everything heat shrunk. It's got a nice short location from the factory grounding location to the ground here on the amplifier. Now we put little holes in our amp, so we're able to actually run that through these holes. Should look nice and clean here. And we already got our RCAs and our sub output wire hooked in, zip tied, just make it look nice and clean as well. This is actually a 2-channel amplifier, but we're going to bridge it at 4 ohms to power our sub. So looking more specifically at this amp design, it's a 12x16 piece that we actually shortened just a hair. We followed in just this shape of the amp back here, but we actually cut it nice and flush back here. Is the side that you're going to see. We put 2 holes here where we can mount it in the carpet. The amp itself mounts to this piece of plastic. We put holes here. Other side, it's all mounted as well. Nice and straight. It'll look nice and clean. And then because the floor slopes and the amp is so big, we put a little MDF spacer there just to level the amplifier out. So it sits nice and flat, so it's not just skiwampus up underneath the seat. Really, this amp is too big for this location, but that's where the customer wants it. I do suggest a smaller amp. They make Class D amps that are half this size, that are twice the power nowadays, and we can link our favorite down in the description for you. All right, so for our ground here, with this all out, if you open up this little pocket, there is a factory ground that's nice and clean and accessible. We went ahead and pulled the 10mm bolt there out, cleaned it up with a wire brush, and we went ahead and reinstalled our ground along with our factory ground at that location. Fed our wire down through. We're going to feed it up and out here. Let's go ahead and pull it on through. And we have our power and ground and remote turn on wire all run. All right, so we got our amp all in and almost mounted. We got our power and ground in there, as you can kind of see the different colors. Remote turn on wire. We got our speaker wire and RCA, so those all go underneath through those holes in the carpet. Speaker and wire RCAs just come out here. We need to run these towards the back. Now the speaker wire, the sub wire, goes all the way to the trunk area, but our RCA cables, we made them short enough where we're going to tap into the rear door speaker for our signal. And so these don't need to be super long. We're going to pull apart the B pillar so we can get to the wiring that goes into the door. And we're going to tap into that positive and negative wire of that speaker so we can install our line out converter, which will provide the signal to our amplifier. So that's kind of the next thing here on the list. Since we have the amplifier basically, and we can start reassembling all these panels here, as we don't need them apart any longer. Alright, so let's talk about this line-out converter. Generally, line-out converters will have two channels of input. It has some resistors or capacitors or a way to step down the voltage, so the output voltage is good for a low-level input, like an amplifier, through those RCAs. Now, it takes two channels, just kind of depends. If you're doing basically a mids and highs amp, you want to certainly use both channels of input, left and right, so you can have a left and a right for your sound system. In our case of a subwoofer, since a sub is mono, we're more than likely okay just snagging one set or one speaker, as we're just doing a mono. Now, obviously you could argue if you have audio that has bass out of left and right that it's different. It's not all that common at all, but you can still go run a wire to the left-hand side of the car to snag the left speaker as well as the right-hand side. In our case, we're going to go ahead and just snag the right rear speakers. Our line-out converter wiring is a little short, so we're going to go ahead and extend it. We combine both negatives with a black stripe to our negative wire over speaker wire, and then we combine both positives with no stripe, just the solids, to the positive side of our speaker wire. It's just a little bit longer here, and this is going to run, we're going to tap in or tee in parallel to the rear right speaker, positive and negative. We're going to show you where to locate that within the B pillar itself. So we're going to go ahead and strip these ends and we're going to solder on. Now you can use some T-taps if you don't know how to solder, as well as butt connectors, but we solder everything, we at least try to here in the Provo Beast garage. So we're going to move our heat shrink up and over these soldered connections here. We're going to luna up our harness like factory. We'll head back over to the car to get this guy installed. Alright, so we went ahead and determined where our positive and negative wires are in this harness. And essentially here at this B pillar, the right rear, we have a blue and a brown. Generally they're twisted pair, but I guess in this case with Mitsubishi they're not. Positive is going to be blue, negative is going to be brown. What we did is we stripped it back without breaking those copper strands, just with our wire strippers. Then we used the pick tool and put a little hole in it. So what we're going to do with our wire is we have our line out converter here. It's all loomed ready to go. We're going to thread the needle here, thread our wire through those little loops, and we're going to solder on. Again, you can use T-taps if you want to use T-taps, but we're going to get our connection hard soldered, and we're going to zip tie and get everything cleaned up for our amplifier. All right, we threaded them through, we soldered on there, and went ahead and taped up our connections, got everything zip tied, got our line out converter all mounted, our C's all zip tied. We can now go ahead and get our B pillar all reassembled. Okay, so we went ahead and got our B pillar all back in here. Amplifier is looking great. Let's go ahead and get our seat back in so we can hook up our airbag harness and such. And that's going to allow us to now go ahead and set our gains with an SMD D1. We're going to finish up over on the driver's side here and also get our Accessory Circuit and remote wire connected. With our seat back in and our harnesses reinstalled to the seat, especially the airbag, we went ahead and put the negative back on the battery. We can get our intake all reinstalled, and basically we're done under the hood. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about this ADA circuit here. What's super cool about this, guys, it allows us to tap into an existing circuit within the fuse box that's currently being occupied to snag that signal for our external device, in our case a remote turn-on wire, to trigger our amplifier to turn on when the key is on. What's nice about this is what you do is you find the fuse you want, you pull that existing fuse out, you put it into the slot, the first slot, and it's going to still retain that existing circuit. Whether this one is special, it allows you also to tap into that positive feed in there, and it fuses are run as well. So you'll have two sets of fuses, the original fuse in the first slot, and then the outer slot is going to be the new fuse circuit, and that'll go to a remote turn-on wire. Comes pre-terminated with a butt connector, which all you have to do is crimp into, but that's it. So we're going to go ahead and show you the circuit we're going to tap into. It's a standard size fuse here. It's not a mini or a micro 2. It's going to be the full size fuse, and let's show you how we're going to get this installed. Okay, so looking at our available circuits here, you have two green ones right there and right there. The one on the right is for your windshield wipers, and so we popped that out and we reinserted our ADA circuit in its place while putting that 30 amp fuse back into the first position in that ADA circuit, and then that's all back in. Then we crimped our remote turn-on wire right into that, and as you saw, that went up and over, taped up along our power wire, and that goes all the way to the amplifier. So that is how we tapped into an accessory circuit to turn on our amplifier when the rest of the car boots up. All right, so we got our sub all hooked up here, just like so. All right, we got our amplifier all in and our seat all bolted down. We got our gain set with an SMD's DD1. Just need to do a little vacuum here. It's all tacked in there, and the nice thing is it's nice and solid with the seat all the way back. You're still gonna have plenty of space, so nobody's gonna put their feet on it. It still rests up underneath the seat, so perfect location. And all you see from this location, it's just a couple of terminals down in there, but it looks nice, so it's not bad. And in the end, it's all hidden and tucked out of the way. Now that is it for this install. It sounds awesome. Got everything tuned to the factory radio. Amp and sub is in, nice and clean, and would love the way it turned out. That's about it for this install. If you have any questions on what we did here, go ahead and post a comment below. Thanks again for watching. Be sure to hit the like button if you like what you saw, and don't forget to subscribe. We post great content on the channel all the time, and we'll see you in the next video.